It's been almost 2 months since I've last finished a book. The last book that I finished was one that I read for this YouTube channel. And since then, I have tried to read. I picked up Alchemized, and I think I got like halfway through this book before I completely dropped it. I really was enjoying it and was planning on doing this whole YouTube video for it. It was going to be a week of reading for like the first week of spring type of thing. And the entire time it was just raining in my city. So I kind of just let that stop me from reading. And I think I entered like a reading slump. I don't know. So it's been quite a long time since I've last read, or rather finished a book. So I'm using today, which is Monday, as a great time to embark on this new journey of reading. Something that I've picked up along the way because of my reading slumps is that it's always best to read a romance book or a romance novel or a thriller novel. That was really hard for me to say. Wow. This is something that I barely started doing because I realized that you can get through a thriller or a romance novel fairly quickly. And so, of course, something that usually always happens to me is I picked up my phone, went on TikTok, and saw somebody talk about this book. It's called The Spanish Love Deception by Elena. And I think this is perfect because the author's name is my name. So this better be good. The only thing that this comment mentioned was that it was peak enemies to lovers. And the one thing about me is that I love enemies to lovers. I mean, on screen, on page, phenomenal. I don't know anything about this. I was reading the back a little bit ago. It says, a wedding, a trip to Spain, the most infuriating man, and 3 days of pretending. In other words, a plan that will never work. Low-key, this is kind of cringy, but this just might work for me. Anywho, I'm gonna get started on this. I don't even know how many pages this is. 473 pages long, and I want to finish it this week. Anyway, I really want to get started on this, so I'm going to finish getting ready and head to a coffee shop so I can get started. Good morning, it's Wednesday. I feel like I finally got to a point in this book where I can talk about it a lot more confidently. I want to start with chapter 1. I started that, of course, on Monday, and I have to say that just a few pages in, I genuinely thought I made a mistake in picking up this book. By mistake, I mean that I haven't filmed or read a book in quite a long time, as I've already mentioned, and I decided to dedicate a whole video on getting out of a reading slump with this book. And I just felt like the first chapter was so messy. I don't like to DNF books. I don't like to start videos and not end them. So I was like, wow, I'm gonna be stuck reading a not very good book and then post about it and be unhappy about it. I was just having a rough time. I did take notes about the first chapter, and the first thing that I said was that it felt messy in a non-chaotic / organized way, which of course that doesn't make sense. But what I mean is that there are books, there are movies, there are pieces of art that are chaotic, but chaotic in an organized way, where there's a structure, you know that there's going to be light at the end of the tunnel, versus this book, or at least the first chapter, to me felt messy, like just messy. Something that I genuinely just didn't like was the fact that I didn't understand where the characters were. I didn't know how old they were, why they were acting like kids, because if you're using words like colleagues, workplace, things like that, you have an idea that they're adults, but they were acting like high schoolers at their workplace, at their job. And the entire first chapter is this layout of a friend, the main character, and then the male interest together. And instead of it being like a crowd situation, it's like two friends looking at each other, and right behind the main character is the love interest, and then the friends are just talking to each other, and then the friend is actually talking to the guy. It's just messy. Like, it just felt very immature to me, and I don't like that. I can't imagine people in a workspace that's supposed to be professional behaving in that way. And it's that whole like, you tell him that I'm mad at him, and then the other character's like, I could hear her because duh, they're right in front of each other. I don't know. Or behind each other. I don't know. To me, it was just like, I just didn't like that that layout, and visualizing it made me want to cringe. And of course, like I mentioned before, this is enemies to lovers, so it's clear that they don't like each other. Oh, that's backwards. It's clear that they don't like each other. So if someone that you don't like is intervening in your conversation and you genuinely don't like them, I think it would just be common sense to turn around and say, hey, mind your business before I report you to HR. And then that's it. You know, that whole scene took longer than I felt like it needed to be. And truly, the first chapter mentioned Chris Evans. So that's like the only reason why I wanted to continue reading. And also the main character's name is Catalina, which I love that name. So I was like, okay, I gotta keep pushing. I gotta keep it pushing. Like, come on. The point where I thought that it got a lot more interesting was when she mentioned her ex in Spain and the whole family dynamic that was going on. And I thought, wow, that's a lot more interesting. I felt like the book started at a really weird place where it really wants you to know that these two people do not mess with each other. But at the same time, like, you get the vibe that they do because they're doing these like immature things. So it doesn't really give off like an authentic enemies to lovers, if that makes sense. So it was a rough first chapter, but I kept it pushing. You got to give it until chapter 5 unless it's really that bad. So I kept reading, and I will say it did get better, and it is a lot more interesting in the sense that things are moving forward in like that really cutesy way of like they're showing interest with each other and they're starting to get to know each other a lot more. This whole fake dating situation is because the main character has to go to Spain and basically visit her family, who they all think that she has an American boyfriend. And she told them this because her ex is the groom's best man. My camera died, so some time has passed. I used this time to chill out because I was getting a little confused, frustrated, trying to explain my annoyance, I guess, with this book. I've only gotten to chapter 8, and I feel like I can already tell that these main characters like each other and that they actually don't hate each other. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I prefer the yearning, the desire, the I actually didn't know that I liked this person type of enemies to lovers. And quite literally, since the first chapter, there's already details that indicate this attraction toward one another. The reason why Catalina doesn't like the male main character is because she overheard him talking poorly about her to their boss. And of course, that's a horrible thing to do. She explains it as something that can potentially get her fired, especially with the type of person that she is, her background, her ethnicity. So she, of course, doesn't appreciate that. And she's held a grudge ever since. But I just feel like as of now, the book hasn't addressed that situation as much as it should have. It was just a brief conversation that she had with a friend, and that friend was essentially undermining her reasoning behind not liking him. It just doesn't seem like a big deal. Obviously, you can make it and explain it to be a big deal, but the book isn't doing that, so I'm not going to do it either. But they both end up needing things from each other. He needs a date to a fundraiser, and she needs a date to a wedding. So they both agree to do each other a favor, even though they both hate each other. Yeah, so we're finally at the fundraiser, and she's discovering that this person that she hates so much and knows nothing about, she actually knows nothing about him. What? Such a shocker. So I'm pretty sure she's just having a fun time getting to know this person that she probably made up ideas of in her own head. I'm not the biggest fan of the book so far. Ironically enough, it's still getting me out of my reading slump because I want to read it and I want to know how this plays out and I want to know if it's going to get better. And it also makes me want to read another enemies to lover that's actually enemies to lovers, and like the people only get together like with 10 pages left of the book. Let's see if we start liking this book a lot more. When they start to get to know each other, it might just get a little bit better. So I'm looking forward to that. We'll see how it goes. Let's see if my opinion changes. We finally made it halfway. I'm on chapter 15 of the book. I'm back on campus and I'm feeling a little shy to record right now. I'm like in the middle, same place that I was last time, and everybody's minding their own business. I really shouldn't care, but I'm just a little shy. They're playing music outside right now and I forgot my earbuds and my headphones, but thankfully I have my wired ones that connect to my laptop, so I'm able to listen to some music while I hopefully get farther into the book. I'm just honestly so glad I got halfway through this book because I'm enjoying it a lot more now, but it's also a little bit repetitive. Like I kind of just want things to hurry up and get to the real juicy stuff, you know what I mean? But anyway, I'm gonna start reading because it is such a beautiful day outside and I'm going to milk this breeze that's happening. Okay. It's finally Friday and I have finally finished this book. I read the last couple chapters outside and it's been such a beautiful week despite it being like almost 100 degrees. And I felt like the environment that I was in while reading these last couple chapters was really fitting. I feel like this book does give off a summer vibe. So perfect timing if you want to pick it up potentially. I actually hate being a harsh rater. I don't like to rate things poorly, but I want to give this book maybe like a 2.5 if I'm being harsh and then a 3 if I'm not being harsh. A lot of the makeup of this book was Catalina's thoughts, her overthinking. So I feel like that slowed the pace down of the book. And that's definitely not an inherently bad thing, but I just felt like you kind of got a sense of what was going on or what was going to happen in this book and it just wasn't happening. So that was a little bit tiresome, irritating. Nothing too dramatic though, because I did enjoy the middle and end of this book. I've already shared my thoughts about the beginning of this book, but as you saw with my reactions when I was on campus, I will say that once things started kicking and the characters started talking and connecting, the book started to be really good. I mean, I really enjoyed their communication. I really enjoyed what was happening between Catalina and the other characters, her ex Daniel, her family dynamic, and the dynamic between her fake boyfriend and her real family. I do have to say that it picked up and it was really interesting when they finally got to Spain and things just started playing out. And of course, because you know as readers from the very first page that they're into each other, like by the end of the book when things are finally happening, you're just like, about time. You just kind of feel glad that they're able to get there because it's been evident from the very first page and even clear for other people around them as well. And I will say like the third act breakup or something like that was super quick. That all happened in like the last 3 chapters of the book, but it played out fairly well. There was like a surprise, not a surprise in a good way, but like a really sad moment for Aaron, the male interest. I don't think any of the topics in this book were very serious, and I enjoyed the fact that it maintained that comedic, lighthearted tone throughout the book, and there was some little semblance of important matters that weren't really shoved in your face. For example, the whole situation where Aaron spoke poorly about Catalina in front of the boss, and obviously she was like, why would you do that? I'm a woman, I am Spanish, you know, da-da-da. And then in the middle you kind of start to understand Catalina's dynamic with her ex and why this has been like a really big secret of her being single, or just that whole why she had to pretend she was dating Aaron. That right there was really interesting because it was telling you about this experience that she had where there was an older respected man who pursued a relationship with her. They both decided to do so, but in the end it was made to seem like it was only her idea and she was getting things because of their relationship. I thought that was interesting, and how it tied into the fact that Aaron was going to become her boss when they went back to New York, and how that definitely influences her reluctancy to start a relationship with him. And of course that was the big thing at the end of this book, but thankfully Aaron was a very stand-up guy and solved all the issues for her, but not in that way as in like he was the person that her ex should have been, or the way that he should have acted, Aaron acted. So that just means he's the better guy, you know? I will say that the first half of this book I did not like, but once it like finally, and this is like almost 500 pages, so once we got to like the middle of that, it finally got a lot more interesting and enjoyable. Yeah, and when I got to the end of this book, I found out that this is the author's first book. Why am I like reviewing people's first books for this YouTube channel? I think that's so, it's just a coincidence of course, but I thought that was so funny. Like, wow, for a first book, like the amount of pages is crazy, but also that you're able to write so well, like in the second half of the book. Like the first half of the book I feel like can always be a little tricky because you're trying to get to know people and da-da-da, but I think it's fine. Oh, something a little funny is that, again, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, is that I did not go into reading this book knowing a thing about it other than it was enemies to lovers. And maybe something I should start investigating is the spice level of these books that I know nothing about, because when it got to the parts where they did the Devil's Tango my gosh, I didn't expect that. I really didn't. So it was a quite interesting experience reading that at a library, and you're just like you're almost like, can people read what I'm thinking right now? I had an experience like this before when like 2 years ago I went to Costco and I went to the book section because they typically at that time had really good deals on books. Anyway, so I went and I saw this book called Icebreaker, okay? Because the cover looked like those cliche romance novels that everybody freaking loves, and I picked it up and I thought this was the cutest thing ever. I think I bought 2 books. Oh my gosh, it was 2 books. It was Icebreaker and that one that's like a black cover with like flowers and has to do with Persephone. I think you know what I'm talking about. And what's even more funny about the situation was that I went to Costco with my boyfriend and I didn't have him, and he bought them for me. So it's always funny when that happens. Of course, maybe that doesn't happen to a lot of you because you know what you're reading. I typically don't know what I'm reading. So when it starts using big words like 2 of the C words and then girth, okay, we're not going into that. But I wasn't expecting that in this book, if I'm being honest, because it was so PG. But yeah, will I say that this book got me out of my reading slump? Yes, I will say yes, because now I want to read a book that made me feel as giddy as it did in the middle as this book did. There were parts that weren't so, you know, and it was more cute and romantic and sweet. That's always enjoyable and really cute. And I think that's what makes these books so fun to read. I think the writing reflected Catalina very well in the sense that she did overthink a lot. She even communicated that she was pretty needy. You never really got much insight on Aaron. We did dive deep a little bit towards his past and his family, but that was just, it was short-lived. I think I'm really liking like duo perspectives where you get a little bit more on the other characters. So you just like end up liking them a lot more. But overall, I would give this book, I think I'll give it a 3. I'll give it 3 stars. 2.5 if I'm being hypercritical. I will say that the ending saved it. I'll say that the end of this book saved the rating. I was thinking of giving it 2 stars. Elena Armas, I want to read more of her books because if this was her first book, I can only see her getting better just because that ending, you know, like how long did it take to write the first half and then you finish it and then it's even better than the first half already? Like, yes, we successfully got out of a reading slump. Yay! Okay, that's it. Bye.